Life often moves in the direction of the image a person holds inside. What someone believes about personal worth quietly shapes choices, actions, and ultimately destiny. Long before success or failure appears on the outside, it begins as a thought repeated inside the mind. In the center of a crowded city stood a busy railway station. Trains arrived and departed without pause. Announcements echoed through the air. Passengers rushed past one another, eyes fixed on schedules, phones, and destinations. In this constant movement, few people truly noticed what stayed still. Near one of the platforms sat a beggar. Every day followed the same pattern. The beggar stretched out a hand, lowered the eyes, and waited for coins dropped out of pity. Some people gave a little. Most walked past without slowing down. The beggar accepted this as life. Survival depended on kindness, not ability. On crowded days, there was food. On quiet days, there was hunger. Inside the beggar's mind lived a single belief. There is nothing to give. No skill. No value. No reason for anyone to stop. That belief became an identity. The beggar did not ask questions. The beggar did not imagine a different future. Each passing train felt like proof that life was moving forward for others, but not for someone who had nothing to offer. Well-dressed travelers passed by with briefcases and confidence. Business conversations floated through the air. Laughter, urgency, purpose. Everything felt distant, almost belonging to another world. The beggar watched silently, convinced that such a life required something missing from within. Poverty did not only live in the empty pocket. Poverty lived in the mirror the beggar looked into every day. What the beggar could not yet see was a simple truth. The situation was not the prison. The belief was. The railway station was not just a place of arrival and departure. It was a place where futures crossed paths without knowing it. And on one ordinary day, among hurried footsteps and passing trains, a single question would challenge everything the beggar believed about value, exchange, and self-worth. Because when the way a person sees the self changes, life begins to change with it. One afternoon, the usual rhythm of the station was interrupted by a different presence. A businessman stepped onto the platform with calm confidence. A tailored suit, polished shoes, and an unhurried walk set the businessman apart from the rushing crowd. People moved aside without realizing why. The beggar noticed immediately. This was not an ordinary traveler. Wealth showed not only in clothing, but in posture and certainty. A familiar thought appeared in the beggar's mind. This man will give more than others. With hope rising, the beggar stood, walked closer, and stretched out a hand. Before any coin could fall, the businessman stopped and looked directly at the beggar. The gaze was not cold, nor was it kind. It was curious. A quiet question followed. "You always ask," the businessman said. "But what do you give?" The words landed heavier than expected. The beggar froze. No insult had been spoken. No anger. Yet the question felt sharper than rejection. No one had ever asked such a thing before. "I am a beggar," the beggar replied after a pause. "Survival depends on asking. There is nothing to give." The businessman nodded slowly. "If there is nothing to give," the businessman said, "there is also no reason to receive. Life works on exchange, not pity." The platform fell silent for the beggar. Trains continued to move. People continued to walk. But the moment felt suspended. The businessman adjusted a briefcase and continued. "Business is simple. Value is offered. Value is returned. Without exchange, nothing grows." With that, the businessman stepped onto the train and disappeared behind closing doors. The beggar remained still. The question repeated again and again inside the mind. "What do you give?" That night, sleep refused to come. The words echoed louder than the noise of the station ever had. For the first time, the identity of beggar felt fragile. If value required giving, then what did that say about a life built only on taking? Another question followed the first. If there is nothing to give, why should anyone give anything back? Days passed, but begging stopped. Not out of pride, but confusion. The old routine felt empty now. Coins no longer felt like relief. They felt like reminders of a belief that might not be true. Slowly, a realization began to form. Perhaps poverty was not created by the lack of money. Perhaps it was created by the belief of having no value. The businessman had not taken anything away. A question had been given instead. And that question had cracked an identity that had never been challenged before. Life, the beggar now sensed, did not reward need. Life responded to value. After that question, the railway station no longer looked the same. Trains still arrived and left, crowds still rushed past, but the beggar began to see more than shoes and coins. The beggar started observing the small details others ignored. Near the tracks, wild flowers grew between cracks in the stone, bright and quiet against the grey platform. Nearby, tired travellers slowed down for a moment, their eyes softening when they noticed the flowers. A thought slowly formed. Maybe value did not need to be big. Maybe value only needed to be real. The next morning, something changed. No hand was stretched out. No familiar request was made. Instead, the beggar carefully picked a small bundle of wild flowers and returned to the usual place. When the first traveller stopped, the beggar offered a flower with a gentle smile. Surprise appeared on the traveller's face, followed by a quiet smile in return. A coin was placed into the beggar's hand, not dropped, but given with intention. As the day continued, the pattern became clear. People accepted the flowers gladly. Some even thanked the beggar before walking away. When the flowers were available, people gave generously. When the flowers ran out, the giving slowed. Not because people were unkind, but because the exchange was missing. That realization was powerful. People were not responding to pity. People were responding to value. Each flower carried effort. Each smile carried presence. The act of offering changed everything. The posture, the voice, the way the beggar stood. For the first time, dignity replaced shame. Money no longer felt like charity. It felt earned. The days that followed repeated the same rhythm. Flowers in the morning. Exchanges throughout the day. Observation turned into habit, and habit slowly became confidence. The station was still loud and crowded, but inside, something felt calm and steady. A simple truth settled deeply into the beggar's mind. Giving creates dignity. Value does not need to be impressive. Value only needs to be honest. Nothing around the beggar had changed. Same place, same clothes, same station. But identity had shifted. The beggar was no longer waiting to receive. The beggar was choosing to give. And with that choice, the world began to respond in a way pity never could. Months passed, and the railway station continued its endless rhythm of arrivals and departures. But one familiar figure was missing. The place where the beggar once sat remained empty. The old role had been left behind, not because money suddenly appeared, but because identity had changed. In place of begging, a small flower business began to grow. Flowers were arranged carefully each morning, chosen with purpose rather than desperation. What started as a simple exchange turned into steady income, then into opportunity. The man no longer waited for kindness. The man created value. One afternoon, at the same station, two well-dressed men crossed paths. A brief pause followed, then recognition. The businessman from months earlier smiled, surprised by what stood before the eyes. The former beggar smiled back, standing tall and calm. Conversation flowed easily, not from pity or instruction, but from respect. Both men spoke as equals. One question remained unspoken, yet fully understood. What had truly changed? The answer was simple. Belief had come first. Success did not arrive and then create confidence. Confidence created the actions that led to success. The moment the man stopped seeing the self as small, the world responded differently. A quiet truth echoed in the space between passing trains. A person does not become successful and then believe. Belief comes first. Becoming follows. This story is a reminder that limits often live only in the mind. Circumstances may look heavy, but identity decides direction. When the way a person sees the self changes, choices change. And when choices change, life follows. If this story made you pause and reflect, share the lesson you took from it in the comments. Like the video if it challenged the way you think. And subscribe to Inspire English Stories to keep learning English through stories that inspire growth, confidence, and purpose. Because the future does not begin with what you have. It begins with what you believe.